House in May 2017. And at that meeting, it looked almost good that we'll have a united front or one side of the table where we'll have the government with the affected communities. But that did not happen. The meeting went very well, but the president didn't come back on his word. So in 2019, we did a follow-up to ask, where do we stand now? We had an agreement in 2017, although it was not in writing. Can we join and can we still be part as per the resolution of 2006? But that did not happen. Eventually, 2021, it was announced that the two governments have reached an agreement. Now, based on principle, NTLA and OTA is not part of that agreement. And we will oppose the agreement all the way. Our understanding is that the agreement will now be tabled in Parliament, or it has already, the motion has been tabled, or the joint agreement has been tabled. It'll be discussed as from the 21st of September. Now, obviously, the 2006 resolution has now been changed with a new motion. Initially, we were talking about genocide, reparations, genocide, apology, reparations. Now we are looking at genocide, apology, quantum, which we don't agree with at all. I mean, initially we had reparations in, and now that has been taken out because the German government obviously pushed that the reparation portion be taken out. So the Namibian government is now changing the motion in the Parliament. That's the part where we don't agree also. But the main principle is that we were not party to this agreement. And we had many opportunities that we pushed the government to be involved. And up until today, the government is still reluctant to involve us. Looking at the agreement itself, we cannot say much about the agreement. I think our consideration is that the agreement is a flop. It doesn't have much that we can discuss, apart from the fact that they have identified 7 regions, which is basically the ancestral land of the affected communities. And that portion is basically contributes 82% of the total landscape of Namibia, the area. So if the government cannot reconsider this, we must always keep that in mind. 82% of Namibia's landscape or geographical area belongs to the affected communities. And if we cannot be involved in the process and we cannot find a soft solution, then we'll be looking at a hard solution. And that's the issue. The money, etc., we are very different. Our view, there is a material difference on what the government is negotiating and what the affected communities are looking at. Meaning, government has negotiated for government projects. It has got nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the Nama and Ovairo communities and how they see the reparation as such. Only up to there for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If I may, I would pose like 1 or 2 follow-up questions, unless Mr. van Holtz would like to react directly to what Mr. Dix has said. No? Okay. So I think it would be interesting for the audience, especially those who might not have joined the past online events, to know why the Namibian government has decided to exclude you from the negotiation table.
It is not clear why the government is doing this. One can only assume if the directly affected parties are on table, then there is this assumption perhaps that the other side of the table, the German negotiators, would rather focus to satisfy the affected communities more than the government itself. And that is the one thing that could be a contributing factor for our exclusion. Because when you have the affected communities, the Ovairo and Nama, sitting with the Namibian government on the one side and the German government on the other side, there is a belief that the German government would focus to satisfy the two communities that were directly affected by the genocide and then the subsequent orders of expropriation of property, whether it's movable or immovable. So that, I think, is the first part that the Namibian government is wary of. The fact that if the directly affected communities are on the table, what will Germany's focus be to satisfy? The two communities or the Namibian government? And that there is a fear or an element of fear or perhaps uncertainty on the side of the Namibian government. Apart from that, I cannot see any other reason why the Namibian government could exclude us, unless they want to push their national agenda instead of focusing on repair of what happened in the period of 1904 to 1908. If the focus was rather on let's focus on that chapter and let's, like the Germans put, heal the wounds, then the national agenda is not so important. And that's where the conflict of interest might be coming in. But it's my assumption, it's not a fact. Thank you.
Okay.
You had two follow-up questions. One I answered. Where's the? You can ask the other follow-up question.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, the second question is, especially considering that we have a German politician with us tonight, I was wondering if you could pose a direct demand to the German government, what would it look like? Like, what exactly would it be that you would want to, to be different regarding this agreement? Like something that we could still change right now?
Yes. I think Master Otmar was born in Namibia. He grew up in Namibia. He has a fair understanding of what's happening in Namibia. And he's also doing regular visits as much as he can get time. Now the pandemic is an exception, but otherwise he would have also been here last year. So my question to him is, this is a potential conflict item and can risk Namibia because 82% of the land belongs to the Nama and Ero and the affected communities, while the other 18% belongs to the people in the northern areas, which were totally not affected by this. And then if this process continues without including the directly affected communities, then we have that risk that we'll go the soft route of trying to find solutions. We'll go to courts, we'll try to influence the parliament, then we'll go to courts, we'll go to UN, but if everything else fails, then we'll be embarking on looking at getting our land back. We'll be embarking on looking at issues like escalating the process to such an extent that we must start looking at justice. My question and request from the Green Party or from the Parliament of the Bundestag is to stop the process on the German side. Remember, when the extermination order was given on the 2nd of October, 1904 to the Ovairo people, it was withdrawn, although the killings continued. It was withdrawn on the 8th of December, 1904, on 4 points. The first point was Christianity and humanity. Then the German government looked at the economic impact afterwards. Will there be workers? Yes or no? How will the country be restructured? Or how will the infrastructures come? Then there was the issue of what will be Germany's standing in civilized society. My view is those things don't change today. It's still a matter of Christianity, humanity, still a matter of what's Germany's position in society. If they completely exclude the Nama and Ovairo people from the process or the talks on genocide and reparations. So can the Green Party and the German government stop until this process is revisited and the affected communities are involved. That is my demand or question to you. Thank you.
Should I proceed, or are you going to give me the word?
Yes, you may proceed.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, for giving me the chance to elaborate on this issue. I'm going to give you an answer on your request or your questions. Also, there's a question in the chat whether the German representatives are aware of the exclusion of the affected communities, and maybe I remember also to say a word on that. But let me please at first give a short historic review, because as a concerned member of the privileged community in Namibia, my forefathers, they went to the colony. They migrated to the colony with on different economic grounds. My parents, they were born there. They were living there. I was born there. I'm a Namibian citizen. Still, I'm a Namibian citizen. And when I was young at school, we had German schools. We also have the German school in Windhoek which I attended, and we never, as young German-speaking people, we were never confronted with the past, with the history. We didn't even hear about that there was that it actually was a German colony. We never thought about why are we German-speaking living in the middle of Africa. So we just took it for granted because you were born there and that's the vicinity you grow up. That's your home place actually. But at school we had to learn a lot of histories on European conquerors, emperors, kings, Kaiser, and you name them, but never we learned anything about what happened in the German colonial time. Then when I grew up, I was confronted as somebody who was looking around himself, what's happening here. I recognized apartheid system, and that was actually the issue which I was dealing with in that time. That's to overcome apartheid, the South African apartheid. So that was actually the center of interest in trying to overcome apartheid borders, to meet black people, to go into Katutura, Kommersdal, visiting those people illegally. Actually, as a white, we were not allowed to go there. So these were the things that were in the center of our lives, at least of those German-speaking white young people who didn't take apartheid for granted. So it's only actually, and then when I came to Germany, I traveled actually or migrated to Germany because apartheid South Africa wanted me to fight in the South African army against my own people. In Angola, it was pre-independence, and that's why I went to Germany and I stayed here. Later, I founded a family and all this. That's a private story, actually, why I'm still here now. But these were the reasons. And when I came here, I first was confronted with the German past, the history of the Third Reich. These were the things that we didn't hear about in Namibia at school either. So I had to really actually learn to not compare things, to not say certain things, certain buzzwords, which are actually not allowed in Germany because of this Third Reich past. And it's only then when I learned, I met German people who were conscious about this German colonial past, that I really started seeing what actually really happened at the beginning of last century. And this is really awkward, because that our own people, our own Namibia-born German people, they are not really confronted with what happened there, and this is something that really must change. But that's just for you to put it into context, how we could have dealt with the whole issue. So there were concerned people, there were affected people. You and your people, Deodat, that you were affected, you really knew about what happened, but we didn't. This is the bad situation that we had, and I think it's still a bad situation down there in Namibia. So nowadays, of course, I think it is there's a very huge need for post-colonial cooperation between Germany and other countries in Africa, especially the former colonies. We are talking a lot on this. How can a cooperation on post-colonial cooperation look like? It's a real huge debate that we have. The Deutsche Afrika Stiftung, a lot of other institutions are having meetings on this, and I am very close to the African diaspora here in Germany to try to get them more involved in German African policies, so as to have a paradigm change in this. What concerning the agreement? Well, I heard you, did you said stop it? So before you said that, before I heard this from you right now, I've written down here on my paper here, what's our choice as politicians? Now I'm actually a German, since I'm sitting in the German parliament, I'm a German politician, of course, with a big heart for Namibia and for the Namibian people, and especially for the Nama people in Ovaherero because of the genocide. So what choice do we have on this agreement? Should we ignore it? And even if we could come into this situation as a Green Party, to be member of the next government, German government, what should we do? I've written down, we have actually two choices: ignoring the agreement, or like you said, stop it, or taking it and making it better and try to make it better, restart or open it up again and restart negotiating or whatever. The agreement itself, we as parliamentarians didn't have any say in it. We did not have committees who were involved in the agreement. It was Mr. Pollins himself and maybe some officials in the foreign ministry, or maybe the foreign minister himself, that had a say in it, but not we as parliamentarians. And as opposition party, we always demanded the government to involve all affected communities. We knew about OTA and NTLA. We met you. I met the late Chief Rukoro several times, and your chiefs, I met them too. So coming to the question in the FAQ, yes, the Germans are aware that affected communities are excluded, but you must also know that there are some chiefs that were participating behind the scenes in the negotiations, and this is what the German government tells us, saying ONCD and all these people, they were involved, so one cannot say the affected communities weren't involved. So what we say is, but it makes no use if you exclude whoever, some of them, the main ones, whoever. It makes no use to exclude a lot of chiefs, a lot of Nama chiefs, one of the important Herero chiefs. So I always asked or demanded from the German government, you must find a way. And then they were telling us, we as German government, we can only negotiate with the Namibian government because they are the legal representatives of the people of Namibia. And but it's like in other countries too. If you have, let's take China, if you have human rights violations against certain groups in China, it's the Uyghurs or Tibet, then we must talk directly with them. So I hope that after the elections, we can find a way That's what I'm going to try to work into that direction, find a way really to get your people do that. And I don't know who's going to succeed the late chief Rukoro, but to take them, to let them participate in the process. I really don't know what is going to happen with this agreement. If the Namibian parliament is going to vote on it the next session, I don't know how the plan looks like, but if they are going to vote on it, and if the ruling party is going to accept it, I think a certain mechanism will come in, will start, and this is that the German foreign minister, maybe even before the new government is constituted, because this could take some months here in Germany, that the current foreign minister is going to sign the agreement with the foreign minister of Namibia. And then we've got a signed agreement, and we have to deal with this somehow. I must say personally, the 1.1 billion euros in that agreement is far too much, wie sagt man das, viel zu wenig, much too less, or however you say this in English. I think we should, as Germans, the German finance minister should have been more, should have had more courage to offer more. So this is actually a point where I think we should politically here try to work, and this is to open up the agreement before it's signed, to say, don't sign it, please, because we're going to have a new government in Germany, and we are going to have new people in Namibia, because also Dr. Z has passed away, late Chief Rukoro has passed away. I heard that also some of your chiefs have passed away. So there are new people who have to deal with it. We have a new German government. And so let's sit together and figure out how we can proceed in the future. And maybe as a last point, if you allow, Nadja, that there is, as a concerned, somehow concerned, let's say it like this, for myself, I think it is really important that we should start a process of talks, of speaking to each other, of the concerned people in Namibia. That's the affected communities. It's your people, dear, and it's the German ones. Those who offer speaks. There are some movements who are constituting this Gesprächskreis, however they call themselves. I know my German people in Namibia. Some of them are really people you can't talk with them. They are so living in the past, but it's not these people that I'm concerned of. But there are also some German-speaking people in Namibia who I think they really know what happened, and they really know that there should be, that there's something must happen now to get to a point of understanding, mutual understanding, and how we can share a common future. And I hope that someday there will be talks between all those people. I still have a lot of other things that I can tell you, but then I won't stick to my 15 minutes. So I'll just stop here and maybe just answer some questions.
Okay. Nadja, may I come in?
Please feel free to.
May I come in? Yeah. Thanks, Otmar, for the contribution. Look, I had a meeting in Germany with German parliamentarians, which are specifically looking at SADC, the Southern Africa part of Africa. And I have told in that meeting, the German parliamentarians that were at the meeting who are looking after Southern Africa, that this agreement will not proceed if we are not included. Therefore, I was urging them to speak to Poland, because we have no authority or no, no influence, so to speak, on Poland. So if they could speak to him before initiating an agreement or coming to an agreement, so that there is an effort to include us. That's the first part. So I want Otmar just to be aware of that. I was personally in Germany. I sat with the parliamentarians that are responsible for Southern Africa, that are looking at Southern Africa. And I've explained the situation to them. That's the first part. So the parliamentarians as such cannot completely claim that they were not aware of it. They should have actually went back to their parties to tell them this is more or less the meeting we had with someone from Namibia, from NTLA, etc. That's the first part. And therefore, I think the agreement must be stopped in its tracks and go back. Because remember, when we went to the State House, to President Hage Geingob, the chief or the head of the Nama Traditional Leaders Association's delegation explicitly told the president that the Nama leaders will only talk on a clean sheet. We will not discuss anything that has already been drafted by other people. We must attend, and then we'll start with a clean sheet so that we have got full input into it. And then we can own the process. And if something goes wrong, we were part of it. And that was as far as the awareness or on the parliamentarian side, on the German side and the Namibian side, why we are pushing for the clean sheet. Then the second issue that Otmar raised was this history was never taught in schools. That is 100% correct on the Namibian side as well. We are also facing this now for the first time openly. Even the victims, although we knew what happened, we were never, because remember, you had one white government, the Germans, followed by the apartheid government. Our ancestors and the generations that came afterwards were so cautious, and they didn't want a repeat of this that happened to their ancestors. And because of this, I found out only last year that one of my grandfathers left, or great-grandfathers left, after the expropriation order, when our land, our animals were taken away. There was a split in the family, and one of the family members actually left to South Africa forever. We never met him again. My uncle tried to look for him in South Africa, but never found him. Equally, that's on my mother's side. On my father's side, I've heard last year for the first time how my great-grandmother had to jump from the Fish River canyons together with women and children. Because when the soldiers, all the men were fighting, mostly women and children were left behind. And because of that, we had the incident where 50 women and 36 children were killed on one spot by the German soldiers. And the person who actually reported this to Cape Arcus in the Cape Colony in those years were actually given a punishment of 5 years imprisonment. So it's also on our side, we know about it, but our parents also never came out clear because they were also afraid. And up until today, some of them, when we have these area meetings, are still scared to talk about it. That opening up is still not happening. So I understand that part, but we need to open it and to bring some comfort, and so that the people understand it's now safe to talk about it. We are negotiating, we are talking about it so that this can be prevented, because the biggest fear of our parents and great-grandparents and parents or grandparents were that there could be a repetition of this, of the genocide that happened. And because of that, they couldn't openly talk about it. So those are the two things that I want to do there. And then, then on the side of the stop and renegotiate, we see that as the only alternative. We don't believe that the agreement as it is now can be improved. We don't want to focus only on the quantum, because most people, 100% of, you can say almost 100% of the Nama and Hero people rejected the agreement. Those that were with the government rejected because of the quantum, the amounts that are involved. But the other part, the Nama people and the OTA, NTLA and OTA, they rejected on principle. So at the end of the day, no affected community is really supporting this agreement, whether it's on quantum or whether it's on principle. Therefore, it's best to go back and to start over the process. The other issue where the German government can claim they are only negotiating with Namibia government or state. That would have worked if there was no resolution in the Parliament of Namibia. Our legislature has put a resolution already in 2006. That resolution actually obliged the Nama and Ovario communities to push for genocide, apology, and reparations, knowing that the government is only a facilitator. Only after our campaigns did the governments come on board. Now, when the governments come on board, we had to look at the legislative resolution, the resolution of the legislature, and then involve our process. So irrespective of what Germany's got on their side, we have got our resolution on our side. And we don't see anything wrong with that setup that was taken by the Namibian government or by the Namibian legislature. So therefore, I think irrespective of what Namibia or what Germany is saying, we on the Namibian side has got a resolution from our parliament. And that resolution should help us to deal with it. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to both of you. If it's okay, I would actually quickly come in here. So if I may summarize, as far as I have understood from what both of you have said so far, just for the audience again, the agreement or the draft agreement has been negotiated between Germany, which was represented in the person of Mr. Ruprecht Polenz, as far as I'm aware, and the Namibian government, and excluded the actual descendants of the victims. So as you have just mentioned, Deodat, as far as I'm aware as well, actually following Namibian law, the NTLA and the OTA should actually be included in the negotiations, right? So basically, the German side of the current draft agreement actually violates Namibian national law. In addition, as far as I'm aware, the statement from the German government up until this point has been there will be no renegotiations if the agreement has once been signed. At least that's what the people who are currently negotiating the agreement are saying, which is why I think from a legal perspective, it would be difficult to renegotiate if it has been signed, which is actually very much the reason why I personally think that it would be a good idea to do the best we can to, not have it signed. And as far as I'm aware, under international law, Germany would actually have to pay reparations as well. So that being said, I would once again ask Mr. von Holtz, actually, do you happen to be in touch with Mr. Polenz, or do you think that you could perhaps, talk to him from one politician to another, so to say, and pass on the messages from Deodat Dirkse, or what is your personal viewpoint on all of this?
I'm going to answer that question, but let me before say one idea, and then at the end, if I may, I've got actually a question to Deodat. I think there is one backdoor, or let's say backdoor, in this whole story, that this agreement, I say agreement, is not an agreement in, also, you must help me, Nadja. Also, es ist kein völkerrechtlich bindender Vertrag. Also, it's not an agreement, it's just a mutual understanding, eine gemeinsame Erklärung. It's a resolution, actually. So this may be a backdoor that we can say, if it's signed, okay, well, then it's signed. But let's try and work out a, was ist Völkerrecht in English?
It's international law.
International, well, let's start trying to work out an agreement, a real agreement that is binding by international law. Because this thing that they are going to sign now, it's not a Vertrag, it's not an agreement, it's just a mutual resolution, Erklärung. I don't know. I opened it up here on my computer. Just have a look how they call it in the English version. Joint declaration. That's right. It's just a joint declaration and not a treaty. So this could be a backdoor. They might sign joint declarations, okay. But now, for new government, let's try to negotiate on a treatment, on a treaty between the concerned people and the German government. That might be a backdoor. I just want to mention this. To your question, I think, how should I say, Mr. Pullins, don't overestimate his role. He had an important role, but he's not the decisive man on this whole issue, because he had a task to fulfill, and that's to negotiate on the side of the German government, and these negotiations for this joint declarations are done. So he has a lot of expertise, yes, and I also think that he really tried to do his best, but he was not the decisive one. The decisive people are sitting in the foreign ministry. These are the legal counselors of the foreign ministry that was saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't call it reparation, because this would give us, this would open the door for others to come and demand reparations, all these things. That's the problem. I think the problem, Mr. Pullins himself, he's not the problem, but I think it's the foreign ministry. So this is what maybe the new government, the new German government after the elections, this could be one of the tasks that we have to tackle, and this is to clarify in the foreign ministry and the legal advisors in the foreign ministry on this point, because I'm not a legal. I'm not, wie sagt man das, Jurist? I'm not an
I think.
Lawyer, whatever. So this must be other people to judge on. But I heard that one could really see these things differently, like they do. So we have to talk on this. I think Mr. Pullins, he had spent a lot of years on this issue, and I could understand if he says, I've done my work and please others must continue now. That to your question. Yeah. My question to Deodat, in these past months, when I was sitting in the German Bundestag, I was very wie sagt man das, ungeduldig. I've been very impatient. I was very impatient that things did not really come to an end. And I always thought, might it help, but please tell me, if at least the German Bundestag would issue a resolution recognizing that this was genocide, because there are still a lot of people in Germany that don't see it like that this was genocide, and let the German parliament representing the people of Germany issue a resolution to say, yes, this was genocide. And we ask for apology, we apologize for it, and we demand the German government to come to an agreement with the concerned people on the consequences. Is this, how should I say, I always thought this would be a way at least to create basis where the people can talk to each other, independently from what our governments are able to achieve. And I just want to hear your opinion on this.
Thanks for the question and the concern on the speed of the process. Look, I'll put it this way. I would rather have a process that is comprehensive than speed it and destroy what you wanted to achieve. Let's say in the current agreement, for instance, those of us who lost families that are now based in diaspora, and those who may not be our families, but obviously it's our brothers and sisters that are now in diaspora. Those people need to be taken into account. If, for instance, this agreement of projects, builds roads, etc., those in diaspora do not benefit at all because they are not Namibian citizens. They are not accommodated in this negotiation. And then at the end of the day, whatever road you build ends up government property. So the affected communities will never benefit anything whatsoever from this process that is envisaged at this stage. So to answer your question on the speed and the engagements, I would put it this way. Those items that are not major obstacles can be looked at. For instance, if the Nama and Ovairo communities can be directly involved, if the German government can tell the Namibian government, look, we are not solving the problem. We can only solve the problem if we can at least cover, let's say, 60+% or 80+% of the traditional communities or the affected communities, then you are moving one way forward. But things like the return of human remains and artifacts, that process can in the meantime continue to run, provided that the current excuses of saying that the skulls and the human remains of our ancestors are now property of an institution, and the German government or the Namibian government cannot put pressure or enable us from getting those human remains back into Namibia. That is for me a flimsy excuse to say the skull of Chief Cornelius Frederick, of Chief Manasseh, belongs now to an institution, and that institution must give no permission for this skull to be returned. I mean, it's rubbish. We cannot accept that. Similarly, we can start with the process of returning the artifacts, exchanging people to bring in, to identify the objects, etc. That process can run. But once again, you need the directly affected communities. Let's say an Oshivambo speaking person cannot go to Germany to identify the artifacts of a Nama person. Not possible. It must be a Nama community member or a Nama person that must go over. So the current idea of the Namibian government negotiating on our behalf takes us nowhere. And I think there is where the biggest delay is. The biggest delay is the exclusion of the affected communities. Once you include those communities, and that should be priority to push for the inclusion of the affected communities, then you have a process that can run, where you have got a kind of ownership from the communities that are affected. Currently, not a single one of us are owning the process because some of them are not happy with the quantum, others are are not happy because of the principles. But at the end of the day, there is no ownership from the affected communities. And then the main objective is obviously lost. So for me, if we want to move forward, first priority must be to include the affected communities. That will work. Once you do that, then you have made progress. But as long as you maintain that it's the two states, the two governments, we are going nowhere, basically. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello?
Thanks.
Yes. We heard you, yes.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Then I'm seeing that we have actually received some questions. So if you're okay with it, I would read out one of the questions, which is the one that, at least for me, is on top. So Nicodemus Cooper is asking, the question is directed to you, Mr. von Holtz. So Mr. von Holtz, thank you for having the courage to participate to our cause. As Namibian-born German and having been exposed to its impact, at least in knowledge as you heard from the descendants of victims, would you be in agreement that the very genocidal act has in fact led some communities flee beyond Namibian borders to Botswana, South Africa, or elsewhere?
Yes, I'm very aware on this, and Deodat was speaking on this issue right now. I also know some people. I also have contact to at least one Namibian descendant of Herero descendant living in Berlin, whose father came to Germany, but who has relatives in Botswana. So this is really an issue which I not yet have got really the clue how we could tackle this without, for instance, getting Botswana government involved. But I think what is very important, and this is sadly enough, but it is a bit beyond the means, I think, of a German government. If we would not, how should I say this? We had a lot of discussions internally on these issues. How many pressure should a German government put on a Namibian government without being subjected to neo-colonial behavior? This is so. How far could we go as a German government? If the Namibian government says no, we don't, and then we ignore it, and we should talk to whomever. So this is something that must be done really with a lot of. It's very difficult for me to say this in English now. If I may, I would rather say it in German. Nadja, if you could translate, because otherwise maybe there will be a misunderstanding. Deodat, is it okay if I first formulate it in German? Und zwar ist es, glaube ich, eine sehr sensible Angelegenheit, die man mit viel Vorsicht, Bedacht, nicht Vorsicht, aber mit Bedacht angehen muss, ohne sich einem neokolonialen Vorwurf auszusetzen, dass man gewählte Regierungen ignoriert. If you could translate this, please, for the audience.
Okay, I'll try my best to translate it. So please correct me if I got you wrong.
My Afrikaans is better than my English. Sorry.
Deodat, if you speak Afrikaans, you're also very welcome to to talk to each other in Afrikaans regarding this. However, for the audience, I'll now try to translate it to English for now. So basically, Mr. von Holtz mentioned that it's a highly sensitive topic indeed, and that there have been heavy discussions within the German parliament regarding, the issue that might arise out of this behavior. So basically the question is that if the German government would now start pressurizing the Namibian government, if they would then not have to deal with being accused of neo-colonial behavior. So, Deodat, would you perhaps like to say something to that?
So what I want, sorry, just to add, what I wanted to say is we must be careful as how to proceed. This is actually now, I can say it in English. We must be careful of how to proceed, and we must somehow find a way. Maybe as in my work in the Bundestag on other conflict regions, we always have these, that's not only governments talking to each other, but we start with mediators. So why don't we involve mediators who start talking to groups, so that we can, like, not government to government, but mediators talking to affected groups that can tell us, the government, how to proceed to get to peaceful solutions. This is how we do it in other conflicts. And I mean, you said that this is a looming conflict. This issue has potential of conflict, and if we tackle it on this ground, then there should be mediators who start talking to you, start talking to German representatives, and find a solution of how to work. If and this is the problem, if the Namibian government doesn't want to involve you, I mean, we cannot. It's the German. If the Namibian government doesn't involve you, what else can there be done? You know, that's the tricky thing. That's where we must find the way. And this includes the diaspora, that includes the people in Botswana and even in South Africa.
If I may quickly come in there, from my point of view, I do wonder why the German government cannot negotiate directly with, the diaspora, the Herewe, the Nama, the Sande, the Mawa, whoever was affected by the genocide, rather than discussing this issue or negotiating with the Namibian government. So why is that not an option?
I'll quickly look up the word, what I want to say on this. Because you always, yeah, it's because if you do this as a government, alongside or beyond another government, it's like an intervention into the affairs of another state, and this is in foreign policies a very critical thing. We never do this. German governments and other governments never do this officially. What we can do is unofficially start talks. And this is done in other countries too, but you never will hear about this, and that's the problem. But we must come to a situation where there are open talks, and if the Namibian government refuses to participate.
Sorry, I can't hear you. It's breaking up.
Sorry, hello.
I can hear you. Maybe it's your internet connection, Deodat, perhaps?
Deodat, do you still hear us? Because I think his video is frozen.
Yeah, I also think he's frozen.
Yeah, I hope I could make the point that you understand what I wanted to say, and I just want to give an explanation. It's not, I don't want to defend it. I just want to explain why I think that that governments are very hesitant doing this, talking to certain groups within a different country, ignoring the competence of the government of that country. And that's why I think that we must find a different way in starting to get the concerned groups being involved in the process. And then maybe we can path the way to official talks, where then NTLA and OTA and all these groups, or especially these two groups, are being part and parcel of negotiation, and in the diaspora in Botswana also part and parcel of an agreement.
So do you both think that this would be a feasible and potential option for the future, to have mediators come in and then, you know, hopefully manage to include everybody that way?
What do you think on this, Judith?
I think I may have lost a bit on the parts that I didn't hear because of the disconnection. But look, Germany as a country or a state or a government, instead of maybe causing a conflict, you can also abstain or stay away from that by telling the Namibian government, this is the danger that we see, and therefore go back to your resolution and look at it, because we cannot go further with this if our analysis on conflict situations are showing us that there is a potential problem. Let's not proceed with it, let's solve it. If the governments are fine with that, to say, let's stop this process because it's a dangerous path, then that would help. If the governments are willing to have the people on the table and to get involved, whether they're in Botswana, South Africa, or anywhere in outside Namibia, and they can be involved, then you can proceed. Then we can start on a clean sheet. I think the mediation process or the mediator process is a process that will come in if the willingness of, let's say, Botswana or Namibian governments are not there and they want to negotiate on their part. Namibia, as it stands, would have been comfortable to go into negotiations given the resolution that states the directly affected people can be on the table together with their government as the interested party. If the other governments have got or the other people have got similar, then I don't see a problem. But it's the overriding of that and to ignoring or deliberately taking action that contravenes that resolution. That's where the problem is currently coming in. But if that resolution can be implemented as has been drafted and accepted by the parliament, then it wouldn't have been a problem. But if the two governments, let's say, feel that they cannot include the directly affected communities, no matter where they are, then we have that option of going the international route and to look at the mediator. But may I caution that even this agreement, if for some reason it must proceed, we will still go to court. We will still go to court for two reasons. The fact that the resolution was not followed and were excluded. And secondly, someone is using the Nama and Ovairo communities to negotiate something for himself. The Namibian government, for instance, is negotiating something for himself in our name, and that is wrong. So we will look at those things. Therefore, looking at the situation, no matter how you look at it, the current agreement cannot proceed. Are we together on that one?
Yes, I fully understand this, that it's just that I'm searching for the formula, how to proceed to really do it. I saw that Sima wrote something in the commentaries on this. I think we cannot compare this with the Holocaust negotiations and the Holocaust reparations, because these were also have been negotiated with the Israeli government. They were involved. This is the point that I tried to make. I tried to find a formula a way of getting everybody involved in a way that we don't have a German government, whoever this is, being accused of state intervention, because intervention in other affairs of other states is always, not only for Germany, not always for the German-Namibian relations, but everywhere else, always a critical thing. So in the sense of how do you call these, in the sense of human rights, of course, human rights conventions, but also the Convention on the Rights of Indigenous People, there are ways and means. If a government comes and says we want to, telling another government we are here to promote the interests of your indigenous people, this could be a way, but in this case, I think this is more. This is actually for Germany to take responsibility and to do it in a way that everybody concerned or the descendants of the affected communities reliably see that Germany really takes this responsibility. And I think, I don't know what happens if a German government invites you for talks in Berlin, and if the Namibian government then sees this as an affront, how do you say this in English? This might have diplomatic consequences, and then the thing is what means do German government then have if we have the Namibian government working against us in this issue? This could also be becoming then quite difficult. That's why we should avoid this situation, that it's something going against the explicit will of the Namibian government. So that's why I'm searching for the way how to do it. I see your appeal now is the German government should invite you, talking directly to you, and I would say after we've got a new government, let's nominate somebody who's going to talk to you and find a way of new negotiations.
Yes, I would really want new negotiations. I don't know what the Namibian parliament will be concluding after they discuss that joint declaration, but we need to talk on a clean sheet, on a new sheet, as far as the genocide and the reparations are concerned. We have also got international instruments where both governments are involved. So I don't think that we can forever say that because of the diplomatic relations between the two governments, the issues of the past cannot be addressed. I hear what you are saying, but I cannot agree to that this must be an obstacle to address the problem, because not addressing has got a bigger risk than addressing it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now I understand this. Have the German ambassadors ever talked to you?
No, we were not involved. Or there was almost a time that they could talk, or they tried, but it just didn't work out, because as soon as you say that you cannot talk to me, you can only talk to my government, then it creates a problem, because my government cannot state my laws. I have to be involved. I have to be directly involved. I have to state my case, and I have to look at how this can be resolved. But if the government comes with its agenda and you push me away, then it's a problem. But let's say there's a new government. At the moment, the best thing is just to on the German side, to say, no, this cannot proceed because it's inviting conflict and it's going a dangerous path. Therefore, we start on a clean sheet. That's the first one. When we start on the talk about coming on the clean sheet, then it means if we can cover up to 80% of those that should be involved, if we also include the diaspora, etc., then we are looking and we can use international instruments and people that are experienced in international relations, mediators or whatever, to really tackle the issue and not cover it now for the sake of saying we've dealt with it while we cause more damage than actually dealing with it. We are not pressured by time at this point in time, because let's have the elections in Germany, let's have the debates in Namibia, but we cannot proceed with an agreement that is very dangerous. But if this few months, 2 or 3 months is passed, we start off on a clean sheet. That would be best for us.
Okay, I hear this, dear, that I cannot promise you this because I'm just one of many people. But of course, I take this message with me, go into our working groups with this message. It's kind of a bit of new, or let's say for me, it's a new aspect. As I said in the beginning. What choices could we have as German politicians if we have this joint declaration? Either ignore it or take it and try to make it better, but not with the same people that were negotiating the joint declaration, because as I said, like Dr. Z, he's not with us anymore, and Mr. Pullins, I think he also said, I'm done. So I've done my task and it's finished, and everybody, it's in the hands of the German government now, and please you do whatever you should and want to do with it. So the new government could say, okay, we have this declaration, but let's put it aside, don't throw it away, but put it aside, and first let's talk to NTLA and OTA to give them a chance to state to make their statements on the whole thing, not on that agreement, not on this joint declaration, but on the whole issue. And let's find a way of how we could possibly get everybody onto the table, at the table, sorry. So open end. I mean, let's not finalize the Dio is gone again. Yeah, apparently. Are there some other questions?
Yeah, actually, Sima posted something, and before I read that out, I would actually also quickly like to go back. So as far as I have understood from both of you, you both agree that, you both think it's necessary to definitely have new negotiations on all of this, which should be handled differently. However, I would like to point out that, at least as far as I'm aware, the current joint declaration will be discussed in the Namibian Parliament actually next week. So at this point in time, regarding the current draft of the declaration, what do you think? Do we have any feasible option of, still not having the current declaration signed? Or what do you think can still be done for now to, basically not sign the current draft in order for everybody to renegotiate an actual agreement after that in the future?
Was this for me, the question?
For both of you, basically.
Well, I really fear that that the current government is going to sign, or the foreign minister is going to sign, as soon as the Namibian parliament has passed the resolution accepting the joint declaration. I can't see whether this is going to happen. I'm not really sure how SWAPO government is judging on this, because they've got the majority and they might get it through parliament with their majority, but I'm not really in this. This should be something the Deodat must say, whether they are trying to get a acceptance beyond their own parliamentary group with other parliamentarians. I can't say this, but Deodat we have lost him again. Sorry. But I really fear that the current foreign minister is wanting to sign it before we have a new German government here. And the only thing that we can do from opposition side is to tell him, please wait, don't do it. But he must not listen to us. So I will talk to the members of the governing parties and ask them to put pressure on the German foreign minister not to sign it now during election time, and well, knowing that he might not be foreign minister anymore after the new government. So Deodat, I just want to know from you, what do you think? Is this SWAPO government going to put it through parliament, not listening to other parties what their meaning is? Or is there also resistance within SWAPO against this joint declaration? I cannot really judge on it from here.
I was unfortunately off again, but look, there is a lot of maneuvering happening at the moment. You have got different people talking to each other, understanding the risks. So we do not know if the agreement will pass the parliament as is, or if it will be pushed to a subcommittee or a technical committee. That's one option that one route that could happen, where SWAPO or the parliament as such is pushing it to a subcommittee or a technical committee to relook at the agreement. We also do not know if it's only the joint declaration that will be discussed, or if there is an actual agreement behind the joint declaration. That we don't know. We haven't seen that yet. So we don't know if there is an actual agreement behind the joint declaration. So if there is such an agreement, that would more or less give more comprehension to any debate or discussion in Parliament that will allow people to make informed decisions. But if it's simply the joint declaration that was issued, then there is really nothing to discuss. Because how do you debate on a press release? Makes no sense. So the opposition parties, we know, we had a press conference together. We are working closely with the opposition parties, and obviously they will not support it in Parliament. So currently you have got only SWAPO that's still looking at it. But within SWAPO, I'm sure if there is no real agreement or an actual agreement, and it's only a joint declaration, then it's of no use to how do you support something blindly just because you are loyal to your political party? That wouldn't also make sense. So I think there is a chance that it may not go through, but we've still got time up until next week when they start debating. But even if it goes through or they vote for it, we'll still go to court. We'll stop it. We'll try to stop it everywhere where we can. But we rely heavily also on the German side What is their standing as a civilized society? Do they support something like that where you are not achieving your real goal? And that doesn't make sense. And for that reason, I do not only look at the Namibian parliament, but I also trust the German society and the German parliament must also look at it and say, look, this is not right. From our side, irrespective of what the Namibian parliament is saying, from our side, we can say, whatever went wrong, and therefore let's not proceed with it. That's what the German society and parliamentarians can say, because I sit with the representatives or subcommittee that's looking after Southern Africa, and I explained to them, this is wrong. So you can't come back and say, I didn't know about it, etc., etc. So therefore, they made a mistake. They didn't pay attention to it. They must pay attention. They must say, let Germany not get involved in something that can create a conflict. Let's withdraw. So Germany can do that on their part. On our part, we are lobbying, we are talking to the people, we are saying, let's keep Namibia as is. Let's not say, like in the joint declaration, 7 regions are identified. Those 7 regions must become the problem of Germany, while the other 7 regions must be supplied from the national resources. It makes no sense. What if the 7 regions that are identified that must now be kind of colonized again by Germany, because they must now hope Germany must develop them, and the rest of the other regions will be developed by the Namibian government? Makes no sense. Therefore,
yeah, but you know that this is you speak about really a problem that is also on the Namibian side, government side. As I heard, it was the wish of the Namibian government to identify these 7 regions. So, and when I heard this, I really must say, I was a bit surprised, because Comas also is part of that parcel, and you know, most of economic money goes into Windhoek. So why should this region then be part and parcel? These issues, I don't know who really can judge on this, you know. But of course, I know this is Deodat. Are you still with us? No, we lost him again.
Oh, Deodat, are you back? Oh yeah, there we go.
Yes. You heard what you could hear me, Deodat? Yeah. Just to take an example, so this joint declaration is not really it's wie sagt man das?
Ja.
Mit heißer Nadel gestrickt. I think there were some people on the negotiation table.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Can you hear us as well? Deodat, are you there? Okay, I think we lost him again. He's probably logging in again. Okay, there he is. Deodat, are you back? Can you hear us? You're muted.
Can you please summarize Otmar's question?
I think what I wanted to say is that this joint declaration is really being set up very quickly in the end, because there were some people who wanted to finish it before the end of our legislative period, and I think that there were some politicians who actually wished to sign it before the elections, to tell everybody in Germany we achieved something, and it's a real bad declaration. There are a lot of mistakes in what they were doing, and this kind of is Comas the region, or shouldn't it be formulated differently? Not that everybody who's living in Comas is even all the German-speaking white people could profit from this joint declaration if we read it like this. So I think, as we Germans say, mit heißer Nadel gestrickt, it's a skimpy bill, so it's being done very quickly in the end, without really talking talking about the real consequences of a joint declaration like this that they have tabled for us. And therefore, starting with the 1.1 billion to the kind of regions that they were identifying, to the fact that a lot of affected groups have not been participated, and not knowing actually who's going to decide where exactly the money is going then in the end. How do the institutions look like? And I was asking this, and they were telling us, yeah, well, the Ovaherero and Nama people, they are going to have veto rights. They will have, but who are they? Who are the Ovaherero and who are the Nama people then in the end? And apparently there are a lot of chiefs and institutions that were not being involved in the past. So why should they be involved in the future then? So all these things have not been resolved, and that's how I judge on this.
Yes, I think that's probably what happened. Was there was a rush, and the entire process lacked consequential leadership. People that did not look what are the consequences, and to deliver solutions that would be sustainable and that would stand over time. That definitely is the case. There was a rush and a push, and it was not consequential thinking process in it. That's 100% correct. I also agree that it's Namibian government side is also at fault, because they are pushing through an agenda, or they've in fact taken over the responsibilities of the affected communities, and also the benefits of the not benefits, but the reparation process that should have been handled by the affected communities. They have taken over and ran with it, and then put their agenda items. I recall you mentioned to me when I was in Germany the last time, you mentioned that you don't know how the 7 regions came up, because you know where the affected communities are, etc. And but if you look at the overall picture, it was Maero, Afrikaner, and etc.'s area. The Windhoek, in fact, Jonger Afrikaner was the one who gave the name Windhoek. So yes, it was part of our ancestral land, jointly with the other affected communities. But again, no matter how you look at it, the Namibian government must also be held responsible. We cannot say it's a state. We are afraid of neocolonialism, etc. We must tell the government, take responsibility for what you are doing. Let's both governments be responsible in our relationship. Let's both government be mature and consequential in our relationship. Let's not enjoy the relationship only for individual or benefits, but also let's deal with it in a responsible manner and consequential manner. That way, both governments act maturely and consequently, and therefore that can work. But if the one government says, I don't want the Namibia, the Namas and the Ovaherero people involved, while the other government is saying, look, we want solutions for this. In that case, I think Germany has the right to say to the Namibian government, let's both be honest, let's both be responsible. That's how I see it. And based on that, the Namibian government can be reminded or be told, look, we need to solve this in a much more acceptable manner. Remember the 9/11 negotiations. You were looking at 80% acceptance when 9/11 victims started claiming. And you had an excellent response at the end of the day. And that is the kind of thing you are looking at. You don't want a process where you leave out the majority of the people. When someone says there were some numbers involved, what numbers? You can't pick people from the streets and say, I've got Nama people. While you are elected by your government or by the people to sit in the parliament, you are elected to be the president. You can't now turn around and say all the elected and legally recognized or accept gazetted leaders do not count anymore. I've got people on the street. That's not how it works. When you negotiate, you have got a base from which you are talking. You have authority on what you are talking about. You are legally representing. But if you pick people from the streets, I don't think that's a solution. On the Ovairo side, you have got gazetted leaders also siding with the government, although they have now withdrawn completely because of the quantum that's involved. So at the end of the day, as it stands now, you don't have anybody on the Namibian side, as far as the affected communities are concerned, that are supporting the agreement. So even if the parliament push it through, you have nothing. And that's the challenge that the two governments are facing. And it doesn't help if both of you are involved and you blame each other for not achieving the objective of why you started talking, then it also doesn't help. So you have to talk to each other and say, we have failed because we started on the wrong foot. Let's fix the problem. Let's start on a clean sheet. But it's a shared responsibility.
Yes, okay. Yes, thank you for this. It's very useful and helpful. I mean, I'm not the German government, so but somebody must pave the way for this process that you have designed now, and I think this is the task lying ahead of us.
Okay. Well, thank you. How much time do we have, or are we done?
Yeah, I think this is actually a good final wording. And yeah, we've been talking for the past 1.5 hours. So I think, we should sort of come to an end, even though it's a very interesting and especially very important topic, definitely. Mr. von Haus, I'm not sure if you've seen what Sima posted in the chat. That's just something I would quickly like to point out before we will close the session. So yeah, to cut it short, I think she really thinks from her part that German parliamentarians can indeed, do even more and support the rights of Nama and Herero in Germany more aggressively. And then there's one, yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out in case you haven't seen it. And otherwise, I think it was a very interesting session, and I'm glad that, you could exchange your thoughts on this. And for the audience, I think, what we have really learned in the session is that there has been a huge lack of who was involved in the negotiations, and that there certainly needs to be we certainly need renegotiations. And actually, as far as what I've understood up until this point, nobody really supports the current joint declaration, at least nobody who is in this call right now. So yeah, do correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah. So I think that's it from our side. Does anyone of you still want to say anything?
All I want to say is thanks very much for the opportunity. And
thank you from my side. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you from my side too. And I look forward to visiting Namibia, and then we're going to meet. And I don't want to meet in Windhoek. I want to meet in the south. then.
Yes, that's what we discussed the last time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, great. Then I thank both of you very much. Thank you so much for your time, and especially for, being open to this kind of setting and to, engaging with one another and discussing these very important topics. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to the audience and all the listeners for listening and for being with us tonight. So yeah, thank you so much to everybody, and I appreciate it, and I wish all of you a pleasant